Welcome to The Eye Opener. I'm your host, Michael Lewis. Southwest Airlines canceled 2,000 flights and is reluctant to tell us exactly why. 24 attorneys general are planning to sue the Biden administration if the president insists on implementing his latest vaccine order for companies with at least 100 people. And Walmart is training staff on critical race theory, but the execs are not following the program. Okay, my friends, let's take a closer look together. You may have heard about some of the chaos at Southwest Airlines. Just a short time ago, the airline canceled more than 2,000 flights. It blamed it on air traffic control issues, but the FAA denies this. It also blamed it on the weather, yet it only affected Southwest planes and no others. In fact, there are already many facts proving that it was caused by the strike of its pilots. Andrew Ross Sorkin is a financial columnist for the New York Times. In response, Sorkin's comment is that Southwest accepted $3.2 billion from taxpayers. That money allowed pilots to remain employed during the outbreak. It also allowed Southwest to become the first airline to turn a profit. It sounds like he makes sense, but in reality, that statement is an excellent summary of how oppression works. People like this can always come up with such examples and try to find excuses for them. Think about the fact that it wasn't the epidemic that put Southwest Airlines at risk. The coronavirus didn't ground their planes or cancel their flights. In fact, the government learned this tactic from the CCP, telling everyone to suspend their lives and lock themselves in their homes to fight the virus. The Democratic Party has become the party that embraces Marxist ideals and pushes forward a so-called progressive agenda that destroys traditional American values. But for American private enterprise, which has to be protected, the Democratic government cannot yet resort to forced confiscation, as the communists did, or threaten life and limb to force owners to surrender their property to the government. So the Biden administration is using the epidemic to force private businesses to shut down. And then at the moment that you face bankruptcy, using taxpayer money, the government gives you a large number of conditional loans and grants. So you have only two ways out: either declare bankruptcy or accept the loan or grant terms so the business stays afloat and the employees don't lose their jobs. But when you take money from the Biden administration, it then has the power to control you, to diminish your individual rights and freedoms, and the oppression begins. This condition usually includes accepting critical race theory, pilots must be vaccinated in order to keep their jobs, and students who want to get federal loans have to obey all the federal government's advice. The city of Los Angeles has asked city contractors to disclose any ties to the National Rifle Association. However, once there is a first time, there absolutely will be a second and a third, until all your freedom and rights are gone. A government grant or loan is compensation for the damage caused by forcing a business to close and should not come with any strings attached. So the Biden administration is using this tactic to try to control all businesses nationwide and impose a totalitarian socialist rule. The disasters that socialism have brought to society are there for all to see. And those who have escaped the socialist system are still haunted by its disaster. Are Americans ready? Robert Gates, former Secretary of Defense in the Obama administration, said on 60 Minutes that the CCP is the greatest threat to the United States, both economically and militarily, and that President Trump got it right when he dealt with the party. The CCP has been taking some very bold military steps recently in the Taiwan Strait and the South China Sea, as well as on the China-India border, and constantly threatening neighboring countries like Australia. It keeps testing the Biden administration's bottom line on the Taiwan Strait and the South China Sea. Gates believes that this has to do with President Biden's timid stance in dealing with the CCP. He said President Trump essentially awakened Americans, especially the business community, to the CCP. For almost 40 years since President Nixon, the wrong assumption in the U.S. has been that a richer China would be a freer China, and that is clearly not going to happen. Years of appeasement policies has led the Chinese Communist Party to become the world's second largest economy. The CCP launched a hypersonic missile in August capable of delivering a nuclear bomb anywhere in the world. This latest event and the clear threat to Taiwan is testing Biden's ability to take on the Communist Party. President Trump's approach is to show strength if someone provokes the U.S. It is the best way to deal with the CCP. And make no mistake, the communist threat will only diminish when the US and its allies flaunt that strength. The Biden administration announced last week that it will soon implement an executive order to compel private companies with more than 100 employees to be vaccinated against the coronavirus. The attorney generals of 24 states have stood up and are threatening to take the administration to court immediately after the government introduces this policy. In Biden's announcement on September 9th, all federal workers and contractors will be required to be vaccinated against COVID-19. And private business owners with more than 100 employees must also require their employees to be vaccinated or face hefty fines. On September 14th, Arizona Attorney General Mark Brnovich first filed a lawsuit against Biden's vaccine mandate because the executive order requires U.S. employees to be vaccinated while allowing illegal immigrants entering the United States from Mexico to refuse vaccinations. Brnovich pointed out that this violates the Equal Protection Clause of the Constitution. Texas and Florida have subsequently enacted laws countering the executive order, requiring penalties for employers who force their workers to be vaccinated or raise their vaccine passports. As the Department of Labor's Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, prepares to issue Biden's executive order, the Republican attorneys general of Montana and Oklahoma have said that the federal government's order is not yet in effect, and the private business owners in those states are not yet required to follow it, and that once the OSHA issues the temporary order, they will sue the federal government for going beyond its legal power of authority and ask the courts to stop its implementation. Montana Attorney General Austin Knudsen issued a statement on October 14th noting that Biden's announcement of his executive order has caused a lot of confusion, but that the executive order has not yet taken effect. Once in effect, he will challenge and prohibit the federal government's overreach on a variety of grounds. Oklahoma Attorney General John O'Connor also said on Thursday, October 14th, that residents have the right to make their own health decisions, including the decision whether to get vaccinated or not. O'Connor said in a statement, "In the event federal emergency rules are issued that place such an unlawful demand upon employers, our office will be joined by other state attorneys generals across the country to quickly sue and seek an injunction against any implementation or enforcement." And Governor Kevin Stitt said, "This action is not just federal overreach, it's unconstitutional." O'Connor also noted that some owners force employees to be vaccinated, and that is a decision of that owner, not the federal government. He urged the owners in question to at least allow employees to go unvaccinated based on religious beliefs, health status, and personal preference, among other reasons. And coming up, Biden's climate czar, John Kerry, and his wife have invested $1 million in a Chinese company involved in abusing Uyghur Muslims, and Walmart is training staff on CRT, but ironically, the company's rich white execs are not part of the program. But before we continue, I just want to stress how important it is as the viewer to help us get the truth out to as many people as possible. Please take the time to like the video and share it across all your social media. Also double check and make sure you are still subscribed to the channel and click the bell so that you can be notified every time we post a new video. I'd like to thank you all for your continued support. Okay, my friends, let's get back to the show. According to financial documents obtained by the Washington Free Beacon, John Kerry and his wife, Teresa Hines, have invested at least $1 million in a Chinese investment firm, Hill House China Value Fund LP. And this firm is investing in a business blacklisted for abusing Uyghur Muslims. In response, Republican Senator Marco Rubio called on President Joe Biden to remove Kerry from his post as the climate envoy. Kerry's investment in Hill House was made through a trust on behalf of his wife. He reportedly said in the filing that they did not manage the trust investment. And the Chinese equity firm provided $55 million to Yitu Technologies in 2017. The company was placed on the U.S. Commerce Department's trade blacklist by the Trump administration in 2019 for its role in cooperating with CCP's campaign of repression, mass arbitrary detention, and high-tech surveillance against members of the Uyghur, Kazakh, and other Muslim minorities. Yitu was one of these companies that assisted in the development. Rubio accused Kerry of acting as a lobbyist for the CCP, silencing Biden on Uyghur abuses in China, and actively opposing the passage of the Uyghur Forced Labor Act, which would ban goods made with slave labor in China's Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region from entering the United States. Kerry is also considered to be the central figure in the failed Iran nuclear deal under the Obama administration. Corrupt Western politicians like Kerry are often the characters most easily exploited by the CCP. Christopher Rofu is a senior fellow at the Manhattan Institute. Internal Walmart documents provided to him by a whistleblower reveals that one of its training programs based on CRT condemns the U.S. as a white supremacy system. Since the start of 2018, Walmart has had a training agreement with the Racial Equity Institute in Greensboro, North Carolina. The course is mandatory for executives and it is recommended to hourly employees and has trained more than 1,000 Walmart people to date. The course is based on foundational principles of so-called internalized racial oppression, internalized racial inferiority, and white anti-racist development. The course claims that the history of the United States began with the colonial construction of the white race in 1680. It is a system of white supremacy created by Europeans to distribute and maintain access to power and privilege for white people. It is also claimed that whites are guilty of white privilege and internalized racial superiority, and that they falsely believe that one's comfort, wealth, privilege, and success are earned through merits and hard work, and that all along that racist system has been providing them with benefits. And minority workers at Walmart suffer from constructed racist oppression and internalized racial inferiority as a result of the racist world around them. The program hammers home that minorities in America have developed self-hatred, anger, rage, and ethnocentrism as a result of the racist world around us. White workers are then lectured to accept this guilt and shame for being complicit in racism and to support the notion that white people aren't right. Most ironically, all but one of Walmart's 9 executives are white, with the top 6 earning a total salary of $112 million in 2019. The training has been particularly driven by CEO Doug McMillon, whom whistleblowers say is a true believer in the wake-up call. He even wants every Fortune 100 company to adopt the woke training. It is really hard to understand the purpose of Walmart driving the CRT course, which is a complete fabrication of lies and a deliberate attempt to create social division. By the logic of this course, McMillon and 7 other white executives should resign immediately, give way to people of color, which would be consistent with the course. But would they be willing to do so? And that's it for today, my friends. Check out the playlist right here for more eye-opening content. You can join me in the Eye Opener Telegram chat room and follow me on Newmaker, Gab, Parler, and Getter. Now, don't forget, please sign up to the email list so we can stay in touch. I'd like to thank you all, and I'll see you next time.